Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're going to break down a really high-stakes meeting, one that's about to totally shake up an industry that, honestly, touches almost everything in our lives, even if we don't see it: global shipping.
Think about it. Your phone, the clothes you're wearing, chances are they all spent time on a massive container ship. I mean, this industry is literally the engine of our world economy. But here's the thing. It has a huge climate problem, and now it's facing this absolutely monumental task of hitting net zero emissions.
So how do you clean up a truly global industry without leaving an entire continent in the dust? That's the million-dollar question, right? And it was right at the heart of this big meeting at the International Maritime Organization, or IMO for short. We're talking a tangled web of fairness, tech, and of course, money.
All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. This meeting was all about rewriting the rulebook. We're talking about a group at the IMO focused specifically on greenhouse gases, and their job was basically to stop talking about goals and start hammering out a real, concrete plan of action.
And man, their agenda was packed. You can really think of it like they had 5 giant puzzle pieces they had to fit together. Things like, okay, how do we even certify these new green fuels? How do we reward the good guys for using them? Who's going to be in charge of this massive new climate fund? And maybe the trickiest of all, how do we agree on the math to figure out a fuel's actual carbon footprint? Super technical stuff, but absolutely crucial.
So throughout this whole week of intense debates, something really interesting started to happen. A single unified voice began to cut through all the noise, and it was coming from the African nations in the room. Their message was pretty clear. They were basically saying, hey look, we are all in on decarbonization, but it has to be fair, it has to be affordable, and it has to actually benefit our economies. This wasn't them saying no, it was them saying, let's make sure this grand global plan actually works on the ground for us.
Okay, so that's the principle, but how did it actually play out in these technical debates? Well, let's zoom in on 2 of the biggest sticking points. First, how to certify these new green fuels, and second, well, how to pay for this whole thing.
All right, first up, fuel certification. The big idea here is something called well to wake. And the best way to think about it is like farm to table, but for fuel. It's not just about what happens on the ship, it's about the entire life cycle.
So yeah, this means we're not just measuring the smoke coming out of the ship's funnel. We're looking at the entire supply chain, from the moment the fuel is produced to how it's processed and transported, all the way to when it's burned in the engine, the whole shebang.
And here's where you see the big clash. The global goal? A single, super advanced, harmonized certification system. Sounds great, right? But the reality for many African nations? They just don't have the high-tech labs, the digital infrastructure, or the specialized experts to even participate in a system like that. A perfect system on paper is useless if you can't use it in the real world.
So the African position was crystal clear. You can't just hand down new rules and expect everyone to follow them. You have to help build the capacity first. That means real investment in training people, building labs, and creating the systems needed right there, on the ground. Okay, so the second huge topic was this brand new climate fund. And it's a big one. You can think of it as a global piggy bank for green shipping, collecting money to help developing nations pay for all the new tech and infrastructure, making sure they don't get left behind.
And you better believe the African nations had some strong opinions on this. They were pushing hard for a system that's fair and transparent right from day one. They wanted equal representation on the board, gender balance, clear rules for how the money gets spent. They wanted to make sure this fund wasn't just controlled by a handful of wealthy countries.
And this quote from representatives from Ghana, Kenya, and South Africa, wow, it just hits you right in the gut. They said the continent could end up paying more for a transition it did not cause. I mean, that perfectly sums up the risk here. Without fairness built in, they could end up footing the bill for a problem they barely contributed to.
But here's the cool part. The conversation didn't get stuck on the risks. It actually pivoted. It turned into a discussion about the massive opportunity this whole transition represents for Africa.
Because think about it. If they link this shipping decarbonization to their own incredible renewable energy potential, we're talking about a genuine green industrial revolution. You could see whole new industries pop up, making green hydrogen or biofuels. Ports could become these futuristic clean energy hubs. And that means new jobs, new skills, and less reliance on importing expensive fossil fuels. It's a total game changer.
So when you step back and look at the whole week, what you see is a fundamental shift. This wasn't just another meeting. It was a turning point. We're talking about a new way of making global climate policy. It all kind of boils down to 3 big takeaways. First,
Capacity before compliance. You've got to help build the infrastructure and train the people first. Second, industrialization. This isn't just about cutting emissions, it's a path to becoming a clean fuel powerhouse. And third, and maybe most important, representation. Africa needs a real seat at the table to help write the rules.
You know, when you really get down to it, this meeting wasn't just about shipping emissions. It was a test to see if we can build a new, more equitable way to tackle climate change together. A model where Africa isn't just a bystander, but an absolutely essential partner. So the real question coming out of all this is the world ready to step up and build that future together?